like there was one member that did not want to accept her award. So you
Totally
just-
fine, totally fine, don't mention anything, because not everyone's gonna want to be acknowledged, right? Yeah, just, you know what, celebrate with them privately, right? Say, okay, I totally understand, but I am going to congratulate you.
But she didn't say anything until after.
Yeah, she brought it up after.
Well, then you know what, you apologize, you just say, I'm so sorry, it's just, that it's, we want to celebrate with you, we are proud of you as an entire meeting room, we are a community, we're,
So are we okay to say like, oh, for Amber Sheen, I have a lot of 5 pounds, like, instead of being like, Esme, I noticed?
yeah, that's totally fine, you can, but sometimes they're going to have the names on there, and the other thing to do too is just say, did I miss anyone, which I forgot to do, right? Because you're going to have the person that went,
Yeah.
well, I lost 5 pounds, you didn't mention mine.
And as
Hopefully we
receptionists,
remember.
we ask, right?
Yeah.
We ask if it's
Yeah.
okay to
Do
celebrate.
you want
the
to
meeting.
celebrate that in the meeting?
Oh, okay, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
And
The
then-
other thing I want to mention too as leaders is encourage members to write on the chalkboard. And it can be that weekly topic, internal and external hunger, whatever you want. What else did you notice? I tried to get you to think, and you walked into it beautifully. It was not eating when you were hungry. And that's how I connected the room with your comment about I was in the mall and I smelled Cinnabon. Because everyone in this room has eaten, what's the word? Mindlessly? Right? So it's a common thread. Yep.
Forgive me because I haven't looked at the stuff because I've been letting Chris into meetings in March. With the internal external hunger were sort of the last week conversation. What was the touch on for the new
Track, getting back on track.
Okay.
Yeah. And I talked about it twice, actually.
Yeah.
And it should
And
hopefully
that's since I
instill
haven't
excitement in the members, right?
So it's okay if we mention it throughout the meeting, like that is what we're going to be talking
Sure.
next week, rather than allocating that 5 minutes, because sometimes.
Sometimes it doesn't fit,
It
right?
doesn't
Like it
fit,
did
yeah.
fit to talk
Yeah.
about it for a minute there,
Yeah.
so yeah. Yeah.
But we're okay to talk about it a little bit longer?
You're given 5 minutes-ish, but if your meeting room wants it, remember, if your meeting room wants it and that's where the conversation is going, go with it. You might want to shake it up a little bit next week then, because if you've already belabored it, however, the new people won't have had it, right? You gotta be flexible.
Well, and in fact, you have to have talked about it a little bit if you're going to reflect on it
Yeah.
the next week. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to made a point. Yeah, and
Yeah.
kind of made it. Kind of.
Yes.
Have to have kind of made a point of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just have that point, because sometimes really the meeting goes on and then, you know, when you look up, it's time to say goodbye. It's the end of the meeting and you haven't really had that discussion except for mentioning it once or twice.
Mhm.
And that's okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Do they
You
at
could
least
say to them,
know-
you know, we could
Yeah.
talk about this a little bit more, but I see our time is up, so feel
Yeah.
free to leave. And then those of you that want to stay for a few minutes, but I personally would say, done.
Yeah.
You've mentioned it.
Yeah.
Just you want to instill some kind of an excitement so that they want to come back next week and listen to how do I get back on track?
You're supposed to give them a skill
Yeah.
builder.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The one thing is, and we've already talked about that the members find very confusing the fact that they're sitting with me weekly and it's nothing what we're talking about.
Yeah,
know,
you
they-
brought this up to
you
me.
know,
What if you were to tell the members that this is how we do the meeting now?
We did.
We
So that
did,
they
yeah.
understand it. And then you're just gonna have to, if with new members, this is what we're talking about this week and this is what we talked about last week. See, I forgot to give out the weeklies and tell you, new members.
I am finding that in my meetings, people are confused, why are we not talking about the weekly?
Yeah.
That's there.
Yeah.
So I explained the whole
Yeah.
concept to them, and they laughed and said, we never do homework, you
But
know that.
Yeah, the thing is, we're not gonna focus on it the
No, no,
whole
no.
meeting anyways,
Yeah.
right? It's just, we're touching on it, we're trying to talk about it and hopefully spur further conversation. So it's just, we're hitting on it and then moving on.
Is that what everybody's doing, by the way? Like all across Canada, they're talking, the meeting is.
I wanna
about-
say, I wanna
Or
say
let's
Weight
go even
Watchers
further.
International.
Weight Watchers
Yeah,
International.
yeah,
So they're focusing
yeah.
on what last
Yeah.
week's weekly was?
Yeah.
So the leader connections, they don't seem to follow that.
Well, they do.
Yeah, they do.
In that you're introducing it, and then you talk about it the following week.
Okay.
So that they do their homework, and they come back and they say, oh yeah, internal and external hunger. I actually did it, right? If we said to you, okay, we're talking about internal and external hunger, and then we go on to the next topic next week, they won't have done it. But if you introduce the topic the week before, gives them something to work on. And that's why I started with, did you notice something about external hunger? I think that's the whole idea behind it, right, is introducing a skill so that they have a week to work on it and be cognizant of it. I will agree with what Faye just said, though. How many times do we go into a meeting room? So who here paid attention to their internal and external hunger?
And they all look at you like you're
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, especially when we're doing goal setting, if they have the weekly that we're talking
Challenge them,
about,
yeah.
but they don't, they
Still
have
don't.
it
They
the
got it
week
last week.
before. And if you're doing goal setting, there's some information that you actually read in there.
Well, let's
and do
open it up to the room. Has anyone found a successful way to challenge your members to bring this topic into light the following week?
I just think that the weekly is given, we should be a week. Yeah, it
It
should correspond.
with what we're talking about here.
Because we're spending 20 minutes doing, 25 minutes doing any, give out your bravos, your celebrations, and your last week's meeting, your last week's weekly. And then you're touching on the weekly that they have in their hand, and they don't bring it back to the
No,
home.
They don't.
And it's confusing to members and it's confusing to
Well,
us.
as you know, I already did my evaluation, we did my evaluation last week. I actually spend a little bit more time on the weekly that we're doing. And I introduce the concept, I give them the challenge, this is what we're gonna be touching on next week, like today. We talked a good 5 minutes about, no, well, the internal
Yeah,
episode at the
the-
beginning, no, at the end.
Get back on
that,
track.
But
Getting back
Janice,
on
do they
track.
remember a thing next week?
But then there's a continuum, though, you're saying,
Yeah.
Last
this is
week
what's
we talked
happening, and and we talk about it a good 5 minutes, and I'll say, next week, I want you to go home and if you should go off, because it's Easter, and you go off track, then let's talk about that next week, because then you experience getting off on track. So when the meeting starts, the first thing I say, or one of the first things is, okay, so last week we talked about, getting off track, I gave you that challenge, did anybody that happened to you with the internal and external? Did you experience that this week? And then I only spend maybe 5 minutes on the internal external.
Yeah.
Then
But
it's
you
the
see-
challenges.
Yeah, you see, Janice,
Yeah.
Like, it seems to be working for me, and folks that are like, I have 2 meetings at Northgate and a meeting downtown, and we talk about the idea they went off with last week at the beginning. If they didn't do anything, we talk about whatever they need to talk about.
Exactly.
And then,
Go with the flow.
and at the very least, if we take too long, I invite them to get out their weekly, this is what's going to be talked about at the weekly, observe your week, and we'll talk about it next week. And there's at least 2 or 3 people every week who've actually done some of the homework. And we talk about it, and then we have a conversation. And people, if they haven't done the homework, come into the conversation. So it has been working for me. Sometimes I don't have a long time at the end to introduce the new topic, but I invite them to read the weekly at least.
Yeah.
That's a good
And
thing.
that's-
Actually, I like that.
And I
Invite them
forgot
read
to
the
do that,
weekly.
right? Remember I said I'm not
Yeah,
perfect.
no.
Yeah,
Put
yeah.
a long shot.
I like that, Mariana.
Yeah, I was gonna say that if you don't
Yeah.
get a lot of time, that is a great way to bring it in and to bring that conversation
Yeah.
forward. We've reflected on the week, on the things we talked about. Here's your weekly, here's some tips, strategies, ideas for this week. Let's talk about those
Yeah.
when you come back next week.
Yeah.
Because they weren't doing the stuff before.
No, they weren't.
Whether we were doing them weekly in the meeting or doing it this way, they still don't do it. Let's be honest. Some will, but not a lot of them do. Come on.
No, you're right.
But usually, if a couple of people did do something, and I always
And
have
they'll
a
start
couple
the
of people
conversation,
Yeah.
start the
right?
conversation,
Exactly.
And then that's where it
go into a
goes.
conversation about it.
Yeah, you got it.